This will be 200 at for 7 minutes. Did you not? Yes, I did. You received $300 on one occasion just for testifying at one trial. Is that right? That's right. In addition to that, Mr. Hunter, isn't it true that you were on probation when you got involved in being a confidential informant? When I first started, yes. Isn't it also true that you were arrested the previous spring for selling drugs? I was arrested for that, yes. That state charged you with a felony, is that right? That's right. As a matter of fact, not only were you arrested for that, but you were also taken into custody for breaking your probation agreement, the one that you had from a prior matter. Yes, sir. Isn't that when you decided that you had better become an informant? That is when I started my relationship with the police, yes. The charge you were facing at that time was a felony, wasn't it? Yes, it was. You were charged with delivering marijuana to some undercover police officers, were you not? That's right. The penalty for that was a big fine and 5 years in prison. Is that correct? I believe that's correct. In addition to that, is it not true that you had your probation revoked from the earlier charge? Yes, sir. Were you in jail when your relationship with the police started? Not when the relationship started, but I was in jail one time while I was working undercover with some police officers. Did you inform your probation officer that you had a drug problem since you were 13 years old? I did not tell him that. So if he put that statement in his report, would that be incorrect? That would be an incorrect statement, yes. Did you ever give your probation officer a written statement saying that you used drugs on a regular basis? I never gave him a statement like that, no. Were you ever involved in selling drugs at one time? Yes. Why did you get involved in selling drugs? I wasn't working at the time. It gave me a chance to make some money. Isn't it a fact that the reason you turned into an informant is because you were in deep trouble and because you were facing a possible prison sentence? I wouldn't characterize it as being in deep trouble. How was the connection between you and the police originally made, sir? They approached me. What did they say? They asked me if I would be willing to work with them as a confidential informant. By the way, you are not testifying here under any plea agreement, are you? No, sir, I am not. You basically feel that you are doing your duty as a good citizen. Is that right? I'm basically doing what I had promised I would do. You made that promise because the district attorney said he would file a motion with the court asking the judge to dismiss the charge because you had cooperated in other drug cases. Isn't that right? That's right. Do you feel that your continued cooperation is related to that promise? It's not related at all. My lawyer told me that my obligation has been fulfilled long before this. All right. After you began working for the police as an informant, when did you make your first buy? It was in the summer of that year. How did you manage to get close to the people who were selling the controlled substance? They were people that I was acquainted with. I knew them previously. During any of those buys, did you ever use any of the cocaine or marijuana that you purchased? I turned over the entire amount to the police. Did you ever tell any of those people you were acquainted with that you were going to use the marijuana or cocaine yourself? Not that I recall. Did anybody ever ask you why you were buying cocaine? Yes, sir. As I recall, I said that I was buying it for someone else or that I was going to sell it. State your name for the record. My name is Robert Beaver. Where do you reside, Mr. Beaver? I reside on Texas Avenue. How long have you resided there? About 6 years. With whom do you reside? With my wife and 2 children. Where are you employed, Mr. Beaver? At Southwestern Life Insurance Company. How long have you been employed there? I've been employed there for 10 years. In what capacity? I'm the head of the data processing department. All right. Directing your attention to the evening of June 20, did you have occasion to go to the supper club? Yes, we did. When you say we, who are you referring to? My wife and 2 other couples. How did you happen to go there that night? Before going to the club, my wife and I had been at a wedding reception for a woman who works in the data processing department. While at the reception, my wife said that a talented group of musicians were playing at the club, so we all decided to go there and enjoy the entertainment. How did you get there? We drove there in separate cars, but we all arrived approximately the same time. What happened after you got inside the club? The place was very crowded. We tried to find a place to sit, but the tables were all taken. So we worked our way over to the area of the bar and stood next to the fireplace. Did anything unusual happen after that? My wife and I got separated from the people for about 15 minutes. When we all finally got together again, one of the women made a comment that someone in the back was throwing ice cubes and hollering at them. What happened after that, if anything? Approximately 5 minutes later, it seemed as if someone had pitched a handful of ice cubes. A couple of them hit one of the women. We just commented that whoever was throwing the ice was at it again. Do you know a person named David Miller? Yes, I do. He's the guy who complained to the police. Did you observe Mr. Miller that evening? Yes, I did. Under what circumstances did you first observe him? Well, one of the women identified Mr. Miller as the guy who was throwing the ice cubes. After she pointed him out, did you have an opportunity to see him again? Yes, I did. He had gone to the men's room. When he returned, he stood alongside of us for a moment. I commented to him that the entertainment was pretty good. Did he respond to your comment? He agreed with me, but I don't remember exactly what he said. Then he walked back to his table. What, if anything, happened after that brief conversation? Well, we didn't like Mr. Miller's bad behavior, so we decided to go back to the wedding reception. One of the women had a glass with some ice cubes in it, and she said something to the effect, wouldn't it be funny if we gave Mr. Miller these ice cubes? What, if anything, did you do then, Mr. Beaver? That sounded like a very good idea. After all, he had been pretty obnoxious. I took the glass and walked over to where Mr. Miller was sitting. I handed it to him, and he explained he could throw the ice at the next group of people who had the audacity to stand in front of him in a very crowded room. How did Mr. Miller respond to your comment? He took the glass and immediately threw the ice right back in my face. Under those circumstances, what, if anything, did you do? Under those circumstances, I had the distinct impression that Mr. Miller was coming after me. I'm not asking you about your impression. What, if anything, did you do? I struck him. Where did you strike him? At that instant, I was under the impression that the blow landed on his cheek. When you walked back to Mr. Miller's table with the glass of ice, what was your intention? I just wanted to make him realize how bad he had been acting. Before Mr. Miller threw the ice in your face, was it ever your intention to cause him bodily harm? That was never my intention. When you struck Mr. Miller, what amount of force did you use? I really didn't think I was using a significant amount of force. What was your underlying reason for striking Mr. Miller? When he threw the ice, I believed he was coming after me. I reacted in self-defense. I wanted to stop him. Did you believe it was wrong for Mr. Miller to have thrown ice in your face? Absolutely. What, if anything, happened after you struck Mr. Miller? I walked out of the club and over to my automobile. I unlocked the door, and my wife and I started to get in. That's when Joan Miller, who is David Miller's wife, came over and started arguing with me. She said, "Who do you think you are?" I told her in no uncertain terms that I was the person that Mr. Miller had been throwing ice at all evening. Then what happened? After that, my wife and I went home. We didn't feel like going back to the wedding reception. Did anything unusual